Hope you can see the, oh, here we are. There's some turkeys in my yard. These turkeys really didn't show up in my yard for the first 20 years that I was around. Let's get up there. That's more like it. They're in the area. This area that I live in used to have a lot of pastures, just hundreds, actually thousands of acres of almost continuous pastures with, there were houses around on occasion, spotted within it, ranch houses and things like that. But largely they were, it was all pasture. The side of my house is on an old piece of pasture. You can see there's a oak hammock behind me. My neighborhood tends to be mostly oak hammock. I just happen to be one of the few houses that are in a piece of pasture adjacent to the oak pasture. These turkeys, they come rambling through almost every day, foraging. They don't always come into my backyard. Some of them do. They normally come across my front yard most often. Maybe part of the reason they didn't show up before were because of the dogs I had. That might have had something to do with it. But I didn't see these turkeys in this neighborhood the way we see them today. So, and there's a reason for that. And that's because we've had houses built. So these turkeys have had to find their way from what used to be open pasture land and woodlands that didn't have anything around it to people's yards. So now they walk through the neighborhood looking for a seed to eat. Fortunately, there's a lot of oak around here, and turkeys like oak. But right now, I must admit, they were in the backyard, but I did fudge a little bit. I threw out some sunflower seeds. And these turkeys now are, because they're around people all the time, they're sort of semi-domesticated. Not all animals can do that. So, and I would suspect in time, as the adjacent neighborhoods around me continue to grow, that it's quite possible that these turkeys will disappear altogether. We have had sandhill cranes. They tend to have adapted to life with people pretty well. In fact, they're pretty arrogant birds that don't pay you much attention, and therefore they sometimes get run over because they don't know how to walk out of the road. They're so important. Anyway, and that's too bad for them. Nobody wants to hurt a sandhill crane, and it's illegal. But this brings me to the subject of environmental fragmentation. And you might assume that, well, don't worry about it. The turkeys will just grow, they'll just live on a smaller plot of land. Like you can see behind me is that oak hammock behind me. That's a good few acres back there. But that oak hammock's pretty much cut off from a lot of things. And environmental fragmentation is something that happens that actually can wipe out a species. And the example that I wish I could remember off the top of my head the name of the guy that wrote the book, but it's some other time I'm sure I'll share it with you. I just saw these turkeys out here. I wanted to get out here and talk about this. So environmental fragmentation, I think it was when they were building the Panama Canal and flooding areas, and there was a mountain or a high hill, whatever, that had a certain species of bird on it, and there were birds throughout the whole area, and they flooded, as they do. It happens all over the United States, all over the world. We build a dam, we flood an area, and we create a lake. So Lake Lanier, I believe, is that in North Georgia. But it's not an odd thing for us to do. My lake here in this area is a natural lake. But hey buds, how you doing? Look at there. See, they'll come up and see me. I can't pet them, but they'll come and check me out to see if I'm going to give them some more food or throw something else out here. which I don't do a lot of, but we do a little bit of. Anyway, environmental fragmentation. So they flooded and created a huge lake. And what they found was the populations of a particular bird that they were keeping up with, the population of the birds that lived on that hill, on that mountain, diminished. And it didn't seem to diminish. You would assume, well, it's a bird. It can fly across the way. But there's less resources in that area, etc. So the bird population dropped. And it just dropped more significantly than people would assume that it would drop. Let's see. So when we build our neighborhoods, we might think it is good. I think we all should do whatever we can to plant a native tree in your yard that the birds will eat. That's I planted that back in the back there. Let's see here, back in the back. Yeah, I planted that maple tree there that's got some dying. I just did some work on that, post-hurricane work on that, so it's sort of not a beautiful tree as it once was. But anyway, it's good to plant trees in your yard. Oak trees are a tree that actually provide a whole lot of different species habitat. So you want to plant trees and shrubs that provide habitat for your native species, because that's what they're used to eating, and they may or may not be able to eat whatever fruits come out, or nuts, or etc. that come out on exotic plants. Nonetheless, it's good to plant them, but at the same time, what you really want to do is be in a neighborhood that has a continuous canopy, and depending on the animal, if you're trying to keep rabbits going in your neighborhood, you're going to have a hard time if you build fences and things like that. Now, the rabbits do figure out how to get underneath the fence. They do burrow and stuff, but maybe some other animal. I'm just trying to make the point that all our fences and walls and things like that, that's going to probably have a detrimental effect on things and create that fragmentation. So a continuous habitat for animals is what's important, and therefore it's a big issue these days about the way we are developing, because we just pretty much go in and wipe out habitat. And this is why we have these new laws that have come about urban boundaries, that you can't build past certain areas, so that you can maintain open space out there in the countryside that these animals can travel through, especially big animals. So these smaller birds, they can handle this neighborhood in a way that a Florida panther can't. Of course, I don't want a Florida panther in my neighborhood anyway. I have heard that there have been Florida panthers seen nearby, just a few hundred yards away from me. But and maybe because I live not too far from a lake edge, so that lake edge may help to minimize the fragmentation that is inevitably going to happen, as long as we make sure that the people who own the properties on the lake edge are not developing that intensively. And in our area, the local government has purchased a lot of that kind of land to sort of help with this issue of environmental sustainability. Anyway, we enjoy seeing our turkeys out here, and we're not planning on eating any of them for Thanksgiving. We're just going to look at them, but we'll have some of their cousins probably.